On Thursday night, my best friend and I thought that it would be fun to take the car I just bought for a spin. It was a fire red 1987 Camaro. The night started normal. We ate some food, listened to some music, and chilled in a church parking lot. We were trying to figure out where to go. We didn't realize that we were parked in front of a statue of the Virgin Mary because the second the clock hit 10 p.m., the statue's lights turned on. It kind of freaked us out because we thought someone was going to call the cops for trespassing or something. We just started driving, taking random left and right turns. In the middle of all this, I reset the trip meter to gauge the fuel efficiency of the new car. After some time, we found ourselves in rural country. There weren't many houses or shops. In fact, there were no street lights. After driving a bit more, my friend noticed that the houses on the side of the street were either all dark or lit by candlelight on the windows. We just assumed that there was a power outage. As I was driving, I felt something weird, like the car was being pulled. It also made odd noises. I pulled over briefly to see if something was wrong, and immediately, I noticed that I was on a dirt road. Before I got back in the car and continued driving, something caught my attention. The air around me felt heavy, and it felt almost like I was looking at everything through a haze, like the feeling when your glasses fog up. I wasn't wearing glasses, by the way. We continued driving for about 5 more minutes. Then we hit a dead end. At this dead end was a bigger house than the houses we had seen previously. This house was sealed off by a gate. We could see people inside sitting by the candlelight, but something was off about them. They looked different, like their clothes and faces. They didn't look like someone from today. It was like they were from a different era. Not wanting to be a bother, we just made a U-turn and made our way back up the same road. About 2 minutes into driving, my friend's attention is drawn to the sky. One part of the sky looked like the sun was rising. He stuck his head out the window for a better look. And yeah, it was exactly that. He too described the same feeling as I did. The air feeling heavy and the haze. As we drive more, I noticed that the street is now lit up. Not only that, there is no pavement as well. I turn on my high beams to check if just one side of the road was paved. But sure enough, they were both paved. We also noticed that the houses now have light and electricity. Then we spotted a gas station that was lit up as well, which we know we didn't pass the first time, cause I really needed gas. We pulled into the gas station to fill up and asked for directions home. The attendant says to go down the road we just went and take a left because it leads to a major highway. We told him we just came from there and that it was a dead end. He said he just came from that way to start his shift, and at 10 o'clock, there wasn't any traffic. My friend and I both exclaimed at the same time, 10 p.m.? What time is it now? He said it was 10:32 p.m. This made us really start thinking outside the box, because we were on the road for easily almost 2 hours. I checked my trip meter after this, and it says 172 kilometers. That's about 107 miles. There is no way we covered that much in that little time. Taking the attendant's advice, we head down the road, and to our shock, it wasn't a dead end. We made our way home, and that was that. The next day we tried to replicate the exact same lefts and rights, but we just ended up at the same gas station. I think what we experienced was either a time slip or an alternate dimension. Edit. So some comments have said that we took a wrong turn and ended up in Amish country. That was our first thought as well, but I've spent a great deal around those types of areas. What we saw wasn't one of those areas, and it doesn't explain the speedometer and times not matching up, especially since I went back down the exact same road and had a witness. Also, we didn't really see any town names. Oh, and by the way, a small correction. My friend corrected me about the color of the sky. It wasn't exactly yellow, but more like pinkish. He said the best way to describe it was like the color of the Horsehead Nebula. He also pointed out something that I forgot to mention earlier, that we didn't see another car until we were on the highway. I work in a call center as a customer service representative. This happened 3 years ago, but it still baffles me. I got a call from a customer named Joe, complaining about his bill. He was angry. I could tell that he was an old man based on his voice. He wanted to file a dispute. Bill disputes take a while to be investigated, usually around 5 business days. So I advised Mr. Joe that I will call him back after 5 days and saved his telephone number for the scheduled follow up. A few days later, I called him back with the same telephone number, and a woman picked up. I spoke to her. Her name was Mary. I could tell from her voice that she was old as well. I assumed that she was his wife. So, after explaining her the stuff about the bills, I asked her if I could speak to Mr. Joe to give him the good news that his bill dispute has been resolved and that he will get the right amount of credits. Miss Mary was shocked when I mentioned his name. She said that name was her husband's name, and the reason why she was shocked was because her husband, Mr. Joe, died 5 years ago. She admitted that she knew about the bill dispute but never had the time to call because of her busy schedule. Then she thanked me for resolving the bill dispute even if she never called, but was still baffled that her husband, who died 5 years ago, made a phone call to file a bill dispute. I still remember how sad Miss Mary sounded. She was so happy, yet she kept crying. They were tears of happiness, I guess. She missed her husband so much. She also told me that her husband was the one who always followed up with the bills. What I'm wondering though is if I experienced a time slip to the past, or was it a case of Mr. Joe experiencing a time slip to the future when he was still alive? Edit. For those wondering that it could have been a third person trying to help Miss Mary, I don't think so, because during the call, Mr. Joe's voice sounded like a typical caller who was pissed and upset about his bills. He's the main account holder, and he was able to provide answers to all of the security questions that I asked him, not to mention that it was Miss Mary who picked up the phone when I called that number, not the supposed secret helper who used her phone, knew all the details, and whom she had no idea about. The quality team which reviewed my call several times is still mind blown about it. We cracked a lot of jokes to rationalize the whole thing, like Mr. Joe being from a different dimension or timeline, lol. Way back in 2004, I was living with a friend in Norfolk, England. We used to go walking in the countryside, out in the fields and all that. This countryside was to the northwest of the city, fairly close to a village called Frettenham. One time while we were out walking, we came across a mini forest-like area at the edge of a field. We got curious, so we went over to it. As we approached, we noticed a little pathway or gap in the trees, so we followed it. As we went along through the trees, the pathway became like an archway, as if the trees were growing into a perfect shape over the path. This went on for ages, like maybe more than half an hour. Eventually, we saw daylight at the end, so we powered on along and made it out the exit into open air. But something was weird after exiting that archway. Nothing could have prepared us for what we saw next. The outside looked like a normal countryside, with the exception of a strange settlement before us. It looked like the buildings were made out of junk. Well, wooden junk. And there were these people, looking at us. They were tiny, 4 or maybe 5 foot max, everywhere, wearing rags. They were all muddy and unkempt. They stared at my friend and I like we were aliens from another world. There wasn't a road, just a muddy path through the center of the buildings. No power lines or anything modern either. While standing there, I suddenly had this feeling that I just had to leave. I said to my friend that we should go, so we went back the way we came. It was a pity this happened in 2004, since we didn't have the technology to hand easily that you would have nowadays to take photos and videos of everything. Anyway, we went back and discussed it a few times in the intervening months. Eventually, I couldn't stand it anymore and convinced my friend that we just had to go back with the camera. When we returned, we found the trees and the entrance, but when we followed the path, it only lasted a few minutes and emerged into another field, a normal field. We walked the perimeter of the trees. It turned out to be just a little square of undeveloped and unused land in the middle of 4 fields. No archway, no village, no mysterious tiny people. Suffice to say that there was no point taking pictures. I'm convinced to this day that if we hadn't left when we did, we would still be there, wherever or whenever there is. It would have been just another missing persons report. It's been more than 2 decades since. I would love to go back, but that friend and I have lost contact. I might go back myself, armed with latest technology, and see what I could find. My personal theories are that it was a time slip into either the distant past, the distant future, or some parallel world entirely. It truly was one of the most, no pun intended, otherworldly experiences that I ever had. I still can't believe it happened. Edit. Somebody said that it could have been the Fey realm or the realm of fairies, specifically because of my feeling that I just had to get out of there. It was definitely a survival instinct feeling. I preferred the time slip explanation though, because humans used to be shorter before the modern era. The faces of those people looked like normal human faces, but they did have a mix of shocked, stunned, and a bit hostile expressions. Their clothes were muddy and dirty as well. They just looked like smaller versions of normal people from the Middle Ages or something. But it doesn't mean that I have discarded the fair realm explanation, because even though people used to be shorter in the past, I don't think they were 4 or 5 foot max. That would be too short. I could be wrong though. Someone else mentioned that a lot of time slips happen in the whole East Anglia region, always to the past as far as they know, and Norfolk is situated also within this region. One comment in particular made me very curious and fascinated by a third explanation, that it was neither a time slip to the past, nor a parallel reality of fairies. Instead, it was a glitch of served fantasy, a glitch by the same entity that made the forest look like an archway for more than 30 minutes, when it should have been no longer than a 5-minute walk. It was all a setup to enter, get taken by the entity, and then serve this fantasy as a camouflage for its real activities. There are many cases of UFO abductions where the people are out and about walking, but have a weird feeling of their body also lying still at the same time. The aliens were operating on them, while their consciousness was kept busy serving the fantasy that they were still walking. A couple of months ago, I was hanging out at my boyfriend's house, and I took his dog out for a walk like I usually do when I'm there. For context, in his backyard, there is a barrier of trees between his yard and the neighbor's yard. As I'm watching his dog wander around, at the tree line, I see a woman. She was standing on my boyfriend's side of the trees, looking down like she was looking at something on the ground. I turned back to the door to tell my boyfriend about it, who was coming outside shortly after me. But when I looked back, she was gone. My boyfriend said sometimes a neighbor will come out into their yard, perhaps to get something that went through the trees or whatever. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. I thought it was strange, but I didn't think anything about it since then. Fast forward to yesterday. I'm hanging out at my boyfriend's house again, and we go outside to walk around in the yard. As we are walking around, my boyfriend stops to look at something on his phone, and I keep going, walking towards the same spot where I saw that woman. I was looking down at the ground as I was walking, but then I turned to look towards the house, and I see someone at the back basement door. For a second, I figured it was one of his parents, but then I realized that it was me. I saw myself looking at me and then turning back towards the door. I was seeing myself. I saw myself repeating everything I did that day when I saw the woman. It freaked me out so bad that I got a headache and had to take a nap to calm down. Another detail of the story is that when I saw myself the first time a couple of months ago, I couldn't make out a face because she had long brown hair that covered it while she was looking down. No one else in the house has long brown hair, except for me, and I had just taken my hair down when we went outside. I feel like I'm losing my mind. It honestly could be a visual hallucination, but to be in the same scenario twice is a miraculous coincidence. I don't know what happened, but I saw myself from the past. Has anyone had this kind of time slip happen to them too? I just need to know that I'm not crazy. I have had plenty of time slips in my life, but being the only witness, I had to keep them to myself. And if we are speculating on something supernatural versus me just being crazy, well, I don't like my odds. This is different though. This story has multiple witnesses. It was New Year's Eve. My husband, 2 kids, 13 and 9, and I were staying in a motel. We planned to watch the fireworks from the balcony at midnight because we were in city center and they would be all around us. That was hours away though. The sun had just set, and the sky was a misty purple. I was making dinner, sliders, which at that point were 20 minutes away from done. As I was setting up our plates, we started hearing fireworks. I checked my phone for the time. It was a little after 7. The fireworks kept going off in the distance, and the kids were getting excited. They went out on the balcony to look and asked me to come out as well. I kept assuring them that these fireworks were cool, but the real show would start at midnight. I started to wonder myself after a while though. The fireworks just kept going, more rapid than I expected for 7 in the evening. I went outside and saw bursts of color exploding all over the sky. I marveled at it. If this was 7, what would midnight look like? Then I checked my phone again. It was 12:15 am. I couldn't even tell you what I did after that. I was initially disappointed and confused along with the kids. But the more we thought about it, the weirder it seemed. We had all witnessed the sun setting literally an hour earlier. I had started dinner while it was still light out. The food was still hot and just barely ready. I had checked the time, did the math for them how long it would be while the sky was still purple, and the fireworks just kept going. It went from 7 to midnight in literally a few minutes. I don't even have a wrap up for this. I didn't know what to say. I would blame it on my phone, like the clock being off or something. But that can't explain midnight right after sunset. We are in Utah, not the Arctic Circle. Husband works overnight, so he's used to time feeling weird, and that's what he chalked it up to. Son took it in stride because he's young and time travel is his jam. Daughter and I are the only ones wondering years later what the heck even happened that day. She'll bring it up whenever there's a special occasion and I'm cooking. Like neither of us can trust when something should be done anymore. We both wait on events like we might miss it, because we know that we already have before. Something happened to me and my friends a few years ago, which I can best describe as experiencing a time slip. It was about 10 or 11 at night, and a few of us decided to go to a 24 hours McDonald's. So we hop up in the car and start discussing the order that we would place. When we reach the McDonald's, we see that the drive-thru is lit up. So we pull up, sit, and wait, but nobody ever comes on over the speaker. Finally, we pull around to the window, and it's completely dark. We can't see a single person. We pull around to the front, where you can see the dining area, and that's also closed. Chairs are stacked like they would be when they are closed. Weird, but whatever. So instead we go to the closest Taco Bell and get the food from there. We had to drive past that McDonald's to get home, and when we did, we see that the McDonald's which was closed earlier is now all lit up. Its parking lot is decently full. The drive-thru has 5 or 6 cars, and the dining area was scattered with people sitting and eating. We had only been gone from there for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Not to mention that this is nighttime. How the heck did this McDonald's go from being completely empty and closed to full of people and business as usual in just 10 minutes? It was such a creepy experience. An individual account of a time slip can be brushed off as the person daydreaming or lying or just being crazy. But in this story, it was all of us in the car who witnessed it. And no, we weren't drinking or doing drugs. This incident has become a crazy adventure memory for all of us, and we always talk about it whenever we meet and chill together. We also tell other people about it, who either refuse to believe us or get creeped out as well.